जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा जय गिरिवर धारे जय गिरिवर धारे जय गोपी जन वल्लभा जय गिरिवर धारे जय गिरिवर धारे यशोदनन्दन ब्रज जन रञ्जना नन्दन ब्रज जन रञ्जना यमुनतीरावनचारि रावनचारि जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Giri Govardhan Jai Jai Gauranitai 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 Jai Gauranitai Gauranitai Jai Gaurani Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramhamsa Parivaracharya Asutasara Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramhamsa Parivaracharya Asutasara Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Sakho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath ki jai. Shriman Mahaprabhu ki jai. Shri Giri Raj Govardhan ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. So today we'll be reading from the Nectar of Devotion, and we're doing chapter 14. So before we read, we'll recite the prayers, the Mangalacharna from Nectar Devotion. Nana Shastra Vicharane Khanipuno Sadharma Samstapako Lokanamrita Karano Tribhuvane Manya Saranyakaro Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Nandena Matalniko Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyugo Shri Jiva Gopalako Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyugo Shri Jiva Gopalako Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya So let's read Devotional Qualifications, Chapter 14. Some scholars recommend that knowledge and renunciation are important factors for elevating oneself to devotional service, but actually that is not a fact. Actually, the cultivation of knowledge or renunciation, which are favorable for achieving a footing in Krishna consciousness, may be accepted in the beginning, but ultimately they may also come to be rejected, for devotional service is dependent on nothing other than the sentiment or desire for such service. It requires nothing more than sincerity. So while I was reading this, I thought about Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He was a great scholar in Bengal, at least in Jagannath Puri, and he was, studying the Vedas and basically following the impersonal philosophy, Mayavad philosophy, and his philosophy was that you have to study Vedanta, you have to understand Vedanta, that how you make progress in spiritual life. But it so happened that when Mahaprabhu came to Jagannath Puri, then he went to visit the Lord in the temple, and there he, upon seeing Lord Jagannath, he fainted. He was displaying ecstatic symptoms, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya came there, and he was like, who is this mendicant? But he's taken sannyas, and he's such a young person. It's not fit for him to take sannyas because he's so young. So then he sort of investigated, and in this way he took the Lord to his house, and he sort of made him rest there. So when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to his consciousness, then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he spoke to the Lord, and he told the Lord, like, you're so young, why did you take sannyas? And upon seeing the Lord Jagannath, you've actually displayed some ecstatic symptoms, because he tested the Lord by putting a cotton swab to his nose, and that's how he understood, if the Lord breathed like hot air, then it wasn't ecstatic symptoms, but cold air, then it was ecstatic symptoms. So in this way he understood that the Lord was really feeling these ecstatic symptoms for Lord Jagannath. And then he said, you're a young sannyasi, and you should sit down and listen to me. I will relate Vedanta to you. So the Lord sat and he listened, and then after a while, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he said, like, you didn't ask any questions. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, well, you didn't ask me to ask any questions. All you said was to listen to you, and I listened to you. So he says, so how do you like my philosophy? How do you like my explanations? And the Lord said that, yes, all that you have said is very nice, but your explanations I do not understand. So, and then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was taken aback, like, how didn't he understand my explanations? And then the Lord revealed to him that, he explained it in his way about the personal aspects of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because his explanations were all impersonal. And when he understood that then the Lord showed him, he revealed to him his Satpuj form, and then he understood that this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we see that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, from being an impersonalist, he actually saw the form of the Lord, and he was taken aback that this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he composed some very nice verses. I'll just try to read that for you. Let me just go there. Find it right now, but yes, but Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he composed some very nice verses glorifying the Lord, that the Lord appears as the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he basically is showing the highest form of devotional service and renunciation. So like this, the Lord very nicely revealed to him that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thereby, from being a hardcore Mayavadi, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then became a devotee of the Lord. And so the Lord stayed with him for a while, and went to different places and came back to Puri and resided with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya like this. So once the wife of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, she prepared very nice foodstuffs for the Lord, and while he was taking his meals, then the son-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he criticized the Lord. He says that you're eating so much, you're meant to be a sannyasi, but you're eating so much, and this meal can feed around 12 people, and you are eating this. So that was an offense to the Lord, but the Lord didn't see it that way. But anyway, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he took a stick and he ran after. He wanted to chastise his son-in-law, and he chased him out of the house. Because why? Because he blasphemed the Lord. So, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's wife, she said, "May my daughter become a widow." So this is how grave the offense is, that they didn't want, because they knew that he's full of criticism. Therefore he had a stick ready, but somehow he sneaked in when Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was not aware of what, because he was engrossed in serving the Lord. So in this way we see that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, from being such a hardcore, like studying the Vedas and all of this, and eventually he became a devotee. So this is Lord Chaitanya Prabhu's mercy upon Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and his entire family, actually, because afterwards the son-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Amogha, he contacted cholera or leprosy or something to that effect, and then he was like basically on his deathbed, and the Lord came there and he touched him, and he got cured of his disease, and from that day on he became a devotee, and the Lord asked him to chant Hare Krishna, and he started to chant Hare Krishna, and he became a devotee of the Lord. So we see like this, the Lord transformed hardcore Mayavadis into devotees of the Lord. And the other incident that comes to mind is Prakashananda Saraswati. He had so many followers, and the Lord, in order to teach him, took the humble position, and he sat where the shoes were, and that's how he won over the trust of Prakashananda Saraswati, and he invited the Lord to come and sit with them. He told him that you're such an effulgent and a beautiful personality. Why are you sitting by the shoes? Come and join us. And that's how, by the Lord taking the humble position, then he won over the heart of Prakashananda Saraswati like this, and thereby all his followers and Prakashananda Saraswati became devotees of the Lord. So we see that, so here it is talking about knowledge and renunciation are important factors for elevating oneself to devotional service, but actually they are not, right? So I'll read the whole sentence. Some scholars recommend that knowledge and renunciation are important factors for elevating oneself to devotional service, but actually they are not a fact. Actually, the cultivation of knowledge or renunciation, which are favorable for achieving a footing in Krishna consciousness, may be accepted in the beginning, but ultimately they may also come to be rejected, for devotional service is dependent on nothing other than the sentiment or desire for such service. It requires nothing more than sincerity. So sincerity of heart is, what is recommended for cultivation of devotional service. So in this way, related the story to of Prakashananda Saraswati and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and how they became great devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we'll continue reading now. It is the opinion of expert devotees that mental speculation and the artificial austerities of yoga practice may be favorable for becoming liberated from material contamination, but they will also make one's heart harder and harder. They will not help at all in the progress of devotional service. These processes are therefore not favorable for entering into the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Actually, Krishna consciousness, devotional service itself, is the only way of advancing in devotional life. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause and effect of all that be, and to approach Him, the Absolute, the process of devotional service, which is also absolute, has to be adopted. So it is being described here that when one practices austerity and basically, in this way, their hearts become harder. So, and you will find this, that people who basically practice austerities, because they do not develop the loving sentiments in the heart or emotions for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then their hearts become harder, and because they are very rigid in their practice, and they may be practicing for many, many thousands of years as well, and but their hearts become harder because they basically self-inflict pain upon themselves by practicing these austerities. They inflict pain on the body, and in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna states that by inflicting pain upon the body, then that's austerity in the mode of passion or ignorance, like this. So therefore, one must be able to cultivate loving sentiments towards the Supreme Personality of God, towards Krishna. So we can our hearts can become softer, like this, and in this way we'll be able to practice devotional service and go back to the supreme abode of the Lord. So let's continue reading. In the 11th canto, 20th chapter, verse 31 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna says, "My dear Uddhava, persons who are seriously engaged in my service, the cultivation of philosophical speculation and artificial renunciation are not favorable. When a person becomes my devotee, he automatically attains the fruits of renunciation, of material enjoyment, and he gets sufficient knowledge to understand the absolute truth. That is the test of advancement in devotional service. A devotee cannot be in darkness because the Lord shows him special favor and lightens him from within." So in the Bhagavad Gita also there is a verse that Krishna says that illustrates this point. Tesham satatam yuktanam bhajtam pritipurvakam dami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upiyantite. That one who serves me with love, I from within the heart instruct him in this way. So I'm just paraphrasing the verse. So in this way, the Lord from within the heart, He gives the knowledge on how to progress in Krishna consciousness. Because some devotees may not be scholarly and may not, want to study the scriptures like this. But the Lord from within the heart, He will actually guide the devotee. Like we see also in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, I think. It is being described, I'm not sure if it's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that this devotee, there's a story from the devotee from South India. He was not literate, and he was reading the Bhagavad Gita upside down because his spiritual master ordered him, instructed him to read the Bhagavad Gita. So So he would hold the Bhagavad Gita upside down and he would try to read the Bhagavad Gita, but all he would do, he would look at the picture on the Bhagavad Gita and he would see that, Krishna is driving the chariot of Arjuna, and in this way he would become so overtaken with love for Krishna that, my dear Lord, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and here you are becoming a driver, of the chariot of Arjuna, and, with this sentiment of love and appreciation for the Lord, he would cry. And once another Brahmana asked him, so you're reading Bhagavad Gita every day and you're crying, what are you seeing in this Bhagavad Gita? And then he says, I cannot read, but all I'm doing is looking at the picture of the Bhagavad Gita, and here I'm seeing that my Lord is such a great personality, and he's driving the chariot of Arjuna, and in this way it brings so much of emotion in me that my dear Lord is like taking the humble position. And actually this is Bhaktavatsal, that he becomes purchased by his devotee, like this. So in this way the Brahmana said, now you have actually understood Bhagavad Gita. So in this way, we see that although the Brahmana was illiterate, but the Lord from within the heart, he guided him, and in this way he perfected his life. So we too may not be scholarly, we may not understand much, but just by the practice of devotional service and adhering to the principles of that Prabhupada has laid out for us, no eating of meat, no intoxication, no gambling, and no illicit sex. So in this way, and chanting our 16 rounds, even if we do not understand anything about Bhagavad Gita, but we rigidly practice like this every day, then the Lord from within the heart, he will enable us or give us knowledge on how we can approach him. Jai Shri Radharanath ki jai, Shriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So let's continue reading. In the 11th canto, 20th chapter, verse 32 and 33 of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Lord further instructs Uddhava, my dear friend, the prophets derived from fruit of activity, austerity, and culture, philosophical knowledge, renunciation and practice of mystic yoga, charity, and all similar auspicious activities are automatically achieved by my devotees, those who are simply attached to me by loving service. These devotees have everything at their disposal, but they desire nothing outside of my devotional service. If ever a devotee should desire some material profit, like promotion to the heavenly planets, or some spiritual profit to go to Vaikuntha, by my causeless mercy, his desires are easily fulfilled. So here Prabhupada is making the point that just by practicing devotional service we achieve everything that's achieved by other yoga processes. So we need not do anything else but just engage in devotional service. Actually, a person who is developing Krishna consciousness and still has some attachment to material enjoyment will soon be freed from such tendency by regularly discharging devotional service under the instruction of a bona fide master. Srila Rupa Goswami then recommends that one should not be attached to material sense enjoyment, but should accept everything enjoyable which is in relation to Krishna. So, yes, we should accept everything favorable for the discharge of devotional service and reject things that are not favorable for the discharge of devotional service. For example, eating is necessary and one wants some palatable dishes to satisfy his sense of taste. So in that case, for the satisfaction of Krishna, rather than the satisfaction of the tongue, some palatable dishes may be prepared and offered to Krishna. So this is Prabhupada is recommending that, we should prepare palatable dishes and offer to Krishna, and in that way we can purify the tongue. And, so, yeah. Let the palatable dishes be prepared, but unless they are offered to Krishna, one should not accept them for eating. This vow of rejecting anything which is not offered to Krishna is actually renunciation, and by such renunciation one is able to satisfy the demands of the senses. So, the impersonalists who try to avoid everything material may undergo severe austerities, but they miss the opportunity of being engaged in the Lord's service. Thus the renunciation is not sufficient for perfection. There are many instances where, following such artificial renunciation without any contact with devotional service, the impersonalists again fell down and became attracted to material contamination. There are many supposed renouncers, even at the present moment, who artificially become sannyasis or renouncers and outwardly claim that spiritual existence is truth and material existence is untruth. In this way, artificially, they make a show of renunciation of the material world. So there is an example in the Bhagavatam of Surabhi Muni, who was practicing austerities underwater, and he became attracted. He saw two fish mating, and thereby he became, his mind was disturbed, and he came out of the ocean, and he went to the king, and he asked to marry his daughter. So, he was basically an old man, and being underwater for so long, he was basically like shriveled and wrinkled up. And the king looked at him, and he didn't want to say no, because he's a saint, and and he didn't want to cause any offenses. And at the same time, he did not want to give his daughter to an old man, who came out of the river, and in this way. So he says, okay, here are my daughters. There were 50 daughters, I think he had, and you can make it, you can choose. And then he said, you can come back tomorrow and you can make your choice. So he went back, and he says, he thought to himself that I'm an old man, and these are young princesses, and how am I going to ask their hand in marriage? Maybe I should transform myself. So he transformed himself into a very handsome prince, and he went the next day. And then all of the princesses became his wives. They all accepted him as their husband and became, I think there were 50,000 or something to that effect. I'm not sure of the actual number, but in this way, no, there were 50 of them, and then I think they had, so anyway. So in this way, he married all of them, and he became entangled in family life. So this is this point is illustrating the artificial renunciation, and here Prabhupada warns against that to become artificially renounced is not very good, right? So here Prabhupada says there are many supposed renouncers, even at the present moment, who artificially become sannyasis or renounces and outwardly claim the spiritual existence is truth and material existence untruth. In this way, artificially, they make a show of renunciation of the material world. However, because they cannot reach the point of devotional service, they fail to achieve the goal, and they again come back to material activities such as philanthropic work and political agitation. There are many examples of so-called sannyasis who gave up the world as untruth, but again came to the world because they were not seeking the real purpose of the lotus feet of the Lord. So one should not give up anything which can be utilized in the service of the Lord. That is a secret of devotional service. Anything that can be utilized in advancing Krishna consciousness and devotional service should be accepted. For instance, we are using many machines for the advancement of our present Krishna consciousness movement. Machines like typewriters, dictating machines, tape recorders, microphones and airplanes. Sometimes people ask us, why are you utilizing material products if you condemn the advancement of material civilization? But actually, we do not condemn. We simply ask people to do whatever they are doing in Krishna consciousness. This is the same principle on which in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna advised Arjuna to utilize his fighting abilities in devotional service. Similarly, we are utilizing these machines for Krishna service with such sentiment for Krishna or Krishna consciousness. We can accept everything. If the typewriter can be utilized for advancing in Krishna consciousness movement, we must accept it. Similarly, the dictating machine or any other machine must be used. Our vision is that Krishna is everything. Krishna is a cause and effect, and nothing belongs to us. Krishna's things must be used in the service of Krishna. That is our vision. So, prior to becoming a devotee, I was very young, like in 12, like that, and I was reading other books, searching for the absolute truth. And I used to read many of Shivananda's books because my mother used to subscribe to them, and she used to get these books, so I used to read that as well. So when I picked up Srila Prabhupada's book, and when I actually went to the temple in Caterridge, and I saw how devotees were they used everything for the Lord's service, and I was just thinking, and I had the same thought that the devotees are using all of these facilities which is material, and why are they how is it they're trying to practice spirituality but they're using everything material, and I was trying to figure it out and confused because of this Mayavad philosophy that I read, and I'm trying to make sense of it all. And then later on I came to realize that everything belongs to Krishna, and we should use everything for the service of the Lord. So in this way, my speculative knowledge got smashed when I read Srila Prabhupada's books, right? And how to use everything, because everything in this world belongs to Krishna, so therefore use everything for his satisfaction, like that. So this does not mean, however, that when we give up the principles of discharging devotional service or neglecting abiding by the rules and regulations prescribed therein, this does not mean, however, that we should give up the principles of discharging devotional service or neglecting abiding by the rules and regulations prescribed therein. In the neophyte stage of devotion, one must follow the principles regulated by the authorities of the spiritual master. The acceptance and rejection of things should always be in pursuance of the devotional principles, not that one can independently manufacture some idea of what should be accepted or rejected. The spiritual master, as the visible manifestation of Krishna, is necessary, therefore, to direct the devotee on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So yes, accepting a bona fide spiritual master, taking initiation from him, we read this in the previous chapters, right? And following the rules and regulations. So this is very important, right? Because the spiritual master can guide us on the principles of devotional service. And so Prabhupada continues, the spiritual master must never be carried away by any accumulation of wealth or a large number of followers. A bona fide spiritual master will never become like that. But sometimes, if a spiritual master is not properly authorized and only by his own initiative becomes a spiritual master, he may be carried away by an accumulation of wealth and large number of disciples. He is not a very high grade of devotional service. If a person is carried away by such achievements, then his devotional service becomes slackened. One should therefore strictly adhere to the principles of disciplic succession. So we are following in the line of the disciplic succession, and our spiritual masters are also in the line of disciplic succession. So in this way, they can never become bewildered by the accumulation of wealth and number of followers, because when you become a spiritual master, then automatically, you get number of followers and rich disciples, and and in this way you may become bewildered. But we see that our spiritual masters, they know the principle that everything belongs to Krishna and should be utilized in his service. And the best example of this is Bhakti Charu Swami. He has like so many rich disciples all over the world, right? And he never became bewildered by this. He used this wealth for building temples and for propagating Krishna consciousness, but he never became bewildered by all of this wealth. So in this way, we see that everything, and even Srila Prabhupada, he had so many disciples around the world, and in this way, he used all of this wealth that Krishna eventually bestowed upon him to build 108 temples around the world and to propagate Krishna consciousness. So we should learn from these examples of Srila Prabhupada and Bhakti Charu Swami and the different gurus like this that's trying to propagate Krishna consciousness, right? We should learn from them. A Krishna conscious person, being naturally purified, has no need of developing any other purificatory process of thought of action. On account of being highly elevated in Krishna consciousness, he has already acquired all the good qualities and is following the rules and regulations prescribed by the mystic yogic process. Such rules are automatically practiced by the devotee. A concrete example in the quality on the quality of non-violence, which is considered a good qualification. A concrete example is the quality of non-violence, which is considered a good qualification. A devotee is naturally non-violent and therefore doesn't have to practice non-violence separately. Some people seek purification by joining a vegetarian movement, but a devotee is automatically a vegetarian. He doesn't need to practice separately in this matter or to join any society for vegetarianism, and he is automatically a vegetarian. So we see there's many societies like this. And recently there's veganism, and there's different societies, Save the Whale, environmental, some societies to protect the environment, and so things like this. But the devotee naturally, he because he is a devotee of the Supreme Lord, then naturally, he's conscious that he should not be polluting the atmosphere, the environment, and the seas, the land, like this, and automatically Prabhupada says he's a vegetarian, just by practicing the rules and regulations of bhakti. So we need not artificially, try to do all of these things, because it naturally comes to a devotee. And also to develop all good qualities also, we should not individually strive to practice, or having these good qualities, but just being a devotee and practicing Krishna consciousness, then we'll be endowed with all the good qualities of the demigods. It is being stated. So we'll continue reading. Let me just check the time. Okay, I have like 10 minutes. There are many other instances showing that a devotee didn't practice anything but Krishna consciousness. All the good qualities of the demigods automatically develop within him. Those who are intentionally practicing to be vegetarians or to become non-violent may have good qualifications by a material estimation, but these qualifications are not sufficient to make them devotees. A vegetarian is not necessarily a devotee, nor is a non-violent person, but a devotee is automatically both vegetarian and non-violent. We must conclude, therefore, that vegetarianism or non-violence is not the cause of devotion. So here Prabhupada is speaking about, having these good qualities like being a vegetarian and all of these things, and non-violent, doesn't make you a devotee. So, but being a devotee, automatically you become non-violent, and automatically you're a vegetarian. So, yeah, and Prabhupada is making the point as well that one develops all the good qualities of the demigods automatically, right, when he becomes a devotee as well. So in this connection, there is a story in the Skanda Purana about a hunter who was converted into a great devotee by the instructions of Narad Muni. When the hunter became a perfect devotee, he was not prepared to kill even an ant. Parvata Muni, a friend of Narada, saw the wonderful transformation of the hunter by devotional service and remarked, "My dear hunter, your unwillingness to kill even an ant is not very astonishing. Any person who develops the devotional attitude has all good qualities automatically manifest in his person. A devotee is never a cause of distress to anyone." So, I'm just thinking that we should, although these personalities who are practicing vegetarianism and all that may not necessarily be a devotee, but it does not, we should actually go and preach to these people, right? Because they are, in some sense, practicing some pious activity of being a vegetarian. So if we go and preach to them, then they are very likely to become devotees, like that. So we should try and preach to people like this, so that they become devotees, and it's in one sense they are like dry grass, and once the fire is ignited, then automatically they catch a light. So similarly, because they are like dry grass, right? They are practicing some sort of some pious activity in one sense, right? By being a vegetarian, like that, so they can take up to devotional service. So, but Prabhupada says, but that's not the qualification, to become a devotee. But at the same time, if we preach to them, they can become devotees, right? So, Sri Rupa Goswami affirms herein that purification of consciousness, purification of bodily activities, austerity, peace of mind, etc., all become automatically manifest in a person who is engaged in devotional service. Srila Rupa Goswami affirms herein that there are 9 different kinds of devotional service, which are listed as hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshipping the deity in the temple, praying, carrying out orders, serving Krishna as a friend, and sacrificing everything for him. Each and every one of these processes is so powerful that if anyone follows even one single one of them, he can achieve the desired perfection without fail. For example, if one is attached simply to hearing about the Lord and another attached to chanting the glories of the name, both will achieve their desired goal in devotional service. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, this has been explained. One may execute 1, 2, or 3, or all the different processes of devotional service, and the ultimate end will be achieved, the desired goal of being established in devotional service. Yes, so basically, just by practicing one of these 9 processes of devotional service, then one's life can become perfect. Like Parikshit Maharaj, he was hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sukadev Goswami, he was reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. So both of them achieved the desired goal. So there are concrete examples of how a devotee discharged one of these services and achieved perfection. King Parikshit achieved the desired goal of life simply by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Oh, there's it. Sukadev Goswami achieved the desired goal of life simply by reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. Prahlad Maharaj became successful in his devotional service by always remembering the Lord. Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, was successful by engaging herself in massaging the lotus feet of the Lord. King Prithu became successful by worshipping in the temple. Akrura became successful by offering prayers. Hanuman became successful by rendering personal service to Lord Ramachandra. Arjuna became successful by being a friend of Krishna, and Bali Maharaj became successful simply by offering all his possessions to Krishna. So devotees, we basically follow most of these principles, right? Or all of them. Like Ambarish Maharaj, he used his ears to hear the message of the Lord. He used his eyes to see the deity. He used his hands for service of the Lord, cleaning the temple of the Lord, like this. So all his bodily functions were used for the service of the Lord. So in this way he achieved perfection. So similarly, we in ISKCON, we also do all of these activities, and so our path back to Godhead is open, and it is, it is guaranteed by us practicing this these 9 processes of devotional service. So I think doing for time. Time's up. Okay, we'll stop here now, and we'll take any comments from the senior devotees. from anyone? Mataji's? If not, we'll end. Jai Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.